Welcome to the third Hydrogen Hour of GIZ's International PtX Hub, live from the Transport and Climate Change Week in Berlin. My name is Alexander Mahler and I'm working on transport and sustainability and the PtX Hub. On Tuesday, we learned what PtX is and why we should apply it in the transport sector. Yesterday was all about sustainability. Both sessions can be found online on this platform. Today, we will talk about the application of PtX and hydrogen in transport sectors that cannot be directly electrified, aviation and shipping. We have three experts with us today, and you have the chance to ask your questions by using the chat. But before we start, we will watch a short summary on how PtX works and why sustainability is crucial.
To meet its commitments under the Paris Agreement, Germany will have to cut its greenhouse gas emissions to net zero by 2050. The international expansion of renewable energy means CO2-free power generation along with a sustainable development worldwide. This is the only way to square ambitious climate protection with social and ecological growth. But numerous economic sectors and processes still depend on fossil fuels, but will inevitably have to adapt to environment and climate-friendly energy sources. PtX makes renewable energies compatible and applicable for these sectors and processes. PtX, how does it work? First, hydrogen is produced from water. This requires electric power generated by renewable sources. Then, carbon dioxide is used to transform the hydrogen into either a gas or liquid to serve as fuel. This process is called Power-to-X. X stands for methane, or liquid fuels like diesel, gasoline and kerosene, or solid synthetic fuel. The conversion of renewable energy into synthetic fuels will finally allow the use of green energy for maritime transport and aviation, as well as certain processes in the chemical industry. This way, PtX can make a key contribution to international climate protection and reduce dependence on petroleum and natural gas worldwide. Yet, PtX is not in and of itself environmentally friendly and sustainable. For PtX production to be truly climate neutral and socially and ecologically beneficial, ambitious and binding sustainability rules must apply from the start. This also ensures long-term investment security for PtX systems. To ensure that CO2 emissions are reduced, PtX has to be produced using energy from additional green power plants. If not, its carbon footprint would be even larger than fossil fuels like natural gas and diesel. To produce hydrogen, water is needed. For the energy source to remain sustainable, this hydrogen must be produced in countries where water shortages are not an issue, or seawater can be desalinated. To produce PtX from hydrogen, CO2 is needed. To avoid additional greenhouse gas emissions, this CO2 must be taken directly from the atmosphere or from processes using sustainable biomass. This is the only way to achieve a CO2 cycle with the surrounding air. The utilization of land serving to generate renewable energies, such as solar and wind energy facilities, must be figured into the overall footprint from both ecological and social perspectives. Many developing and emerging countries possess enormous potential to generate energy from renewable sources. PtX can help make them independent of crude oil and natural gas imports. It might even help them to become energy exporters. But only if this creates a local added value can they profit sustainably as PtX producers. The social and ecological effects of PtX production must be measured through sustainability monitoring. This is the only way to ensure that the criteria for a sustainable use of PtX are met.
Welcome back. The clip we just saw can be downloaded in many different languages from the PtX Hub website, www.ptxhub.org. But now let's bring theory into action and see how our experts apply Power-to-X and hydrogen in their projects. And remember, you can ask your questions by putting them into the chat. Our first expert today is Nadine Bresemann. Nadine is a transport expert with over 20 years of experience working for logistic providers, development banks, and environmental organizations. Currently, Nadine is based on the Philippines and works as head of maritime transport in the Partnerships in Environmental Management for the Seas of East Asia, short PEMSEA. So, over to the Philippines. Over to Nadine.
Good morning or good afternoon. Thank you very much for inviting me to join the session here today. I'm honored to be part of this cohort of speakers. My name is Nadine and I'm presenting from the Philippines. I will give you an orientation about future fuels for shipping and also a quick outlook on the potentials of Power-to-X and green hydrogen in shipping. We are currently preparing an EGI project that deals with the reduction of maritime transport emissions in East and Southeast Asian countries. Our kickoff with a total of 10 countries is already next week, and and we are focused on the entire transport chain. That means we look at emissions from ships, ports, and hinterland transport, and how we can assist countries as they transform their maritime transport sector to a low-carbon future. Options towards this include operational energy efficiency, low-carbon infrastructure, and low or zero-carbon fuels. In my opinion, the global sulfur cut in 2020 was a good start, but it was just the beginning of a longer road towards decarbonization. Currently, there is no alternative fuel that is ready to replace traditional marine fuels. Many countries in Asia and also companies have set themselves ambitious emission reduction target, but it needs low or zero carbon fuels to meet the greenhouse gas emission target. The shipping industry is working towards a sustainable future, and we already have some good examples or projects in shipping that are trying to out alternative fuel solutions. Front runners or most famous and promising fuel alternatives are, for example, liquefied natural gas. The LNG is available in more than 100 ports worldwide, and there are around 550 LNG fueled vessels already. Biofuel, ExxonMobil, for example, is focused on advanced marine biofuels that do not compete with food or water supplies. There are estimates that biofuels are expected to make up 10 to 15% of the marine fuel mix by 2030. A lot of hope is placed on methanol. Sulfur and particles are reduced by 90% and nitrogen was 60%. And 6 years ago, Stena Dominica was running the world's first RAPAX vessel, converted to use both diesel and methanol. And but also currently, Waterfront Shipping ordered new methanol dual fuel ships from Hyundai. And, maybe not a big surprise, but nuclear power is also successfully in use. As a zero emission fuel. It is clean and reliable, and Russia is using nuclear powered icebreakers in remote areas because they can go for a long period without refueling. I think a pretty fresh message in 2021 is that Aviation International has ordered a Suezmax tanker that is set to become the first ammonia fuel vessel. And also in Japan, ships are designed to use ammonia. Hydroville, a 16-passenger shuttle, is moving in Belgium and is the world's first accredited passenger vessel powered by hydrogen in a diesel engine, and is a pilot project for the use of hydrogen technology on large and ocean-going ships. Shipping fuels for the future must produce lower or zero emission, have enough power to propel big vessels, They need to be storable, transportable, and affordable. And ammonia and hydrogen are seen as very promising options because they can be made using clean electricity, such as solar or wind power. And on this slide, I have tried to show what requirements are needed to consider Power-to-X as a demonstration pilot in Asia. Actually, Power-to-X must be convincing and in its sustainability and long-term benefits. It needs country support and should be considered as one of the best sustainable options. Power-to-X must stand up to comparison with alternatives and be profitable. Before the lockdown, for example, I had discussed biofuel with the Philippine Department of Transportation, and maybe biofuel is a solution for a country with 7,000 islands. There should be great interest in the increased use and expansion of renewable energies. The energy needed for the Power-to-X process will be in competition with the existing energy supply of a country. And again, the Philippines, for example, import about half of their energy needs and plan to use coal more intensively in the next years. Energy independence is a crucial objective of the Philippine government. Moreover, the private sector and the government must agree in advance to a profitable purchase quantity. Price gap between traditional and low or zero carbon fuels must be closed. And it requires a professional site identification using technical economic criteria such as transport connection, topography, infrastructure, energy supply, climatic conditions. And above all, we need decision-making, brave and committed partners with clear binding promises who want to make a change. We have partners and tools to make our efforts, and maybe Power-to-X is another instrument. I'm very much looking forward to the discussion. Thank you for your attention, and greetings to Germany.
Thank you. Greetings to the Philippines. Wow, methanol, ammonia, and hydrogen. That's quite a variety of possible future fuels. I'm looking forward to asking Nadine later if she sees a favorite here. But for now, we change the continent and we change the transport sector. In Brazil, my GIZ colleague Michael Costa is working on sustainable aviation fuels. Marcos is an engineer with a broad background in renewable energy, smart grids, biofuels, and electric mobility. But today, let's hear about his current project, ProQR.
Hello everyone, I am Marcos Costa. I'm working at GIZ Brazil, and today I will show you a little bit about ProQR project. It's a pleasure to be here in TCC Week 2021. Today I will talk a little bit about the ProQR alternative fuels without climate impacts, which I have the pleasure to be part of the team since January 2019. Let's move on the presentation. In my presentation, firstly, I will briefly show the institutional setup of a project. Then I will start with some general information about the production and distribution of aviation fuels in Brazil. Then we will look at the technological proposal of ProQR. And finally, I will talk about the case of the Ceará. The project is a part of ICI, International Climate Initiative of a German Ministry for Environment, Nature Protection and Nuclear Safety, BMU. We work in the implementation, and we have the available support of a German Aerospace Agency, DLR, and National Agency of Petroleum, Natural Gas and Biofuels, EANP. On the Brazilian side, the Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation represents the Brazilian government. The objective of our project is creation of an international reference case for alternative fuels without climate impacts. Since the beginning of the project, We have a close relationship with different actors of our government, academy, and the industry in Brazil. The project is strategic for both countries, not only for climate protection issues, but also for technological innovation. ProQR has been talking with several institutions interested in participating in development of solutions for decentralized production of sustainable aviation fuels. When we talk about the fuel production, we have the conventional path, the innovative path, and the disruptive path. This is our proposal. Fuel production closes the place of consumption. But how it works? The heart of the system is Fischer-Tropsch synthesis. Through the combination of a renewable energy, CO2 and water, we will have synthesis gas, and which after passing through the Fischer-Tropsch reactor, we will produce blue crude. This crude will produce the sustainable aviation fuel. There are different ways to produce syngas. For example, you can have direct air capture, biogas, glycerin, and various other industrial processes. When we talk about the Brazil, we are talking about the country over continental dimensions. If you look at the screen on the left, we will see the airports in Brazil, and on the screen on the right, we have the refineries, waterways, and aviation fuels storage centers. These slides give you an idea of logistical challenges for the distribution of jet fuel in the domestic market. What I mean is that Brazil has an issue where the centralized solution can be developed for the production of a sustainable aviation fuel. Efforts to realize such a pilot plant are being made together with national and international actors in several locations of Brazil, as shown on the map. All these initiatives take into account the ESG criteria. We believe that when implemented decentralized PtL SAF production, it has the potential to bring environmental, economic, and social benefits to the areas they are building. For the device locations in different regions, individual feedstock arrangements are possible that take into account the respective local vocations. Now, I will show you one initiative that we call ProQR CE. ProQR is supporting a very interesting partnership to make possible a pilot plan of a sustainable aviation fuels in Pinto Martins Airport. This is a partnership with among ProQR and state government and some companies. But why Ceará? Ceará has a great potential over production over renewable energies through solar, wind, and hydraulic energy. Ceará has an strategic geographical position close to the most important world markets. And the Fortaleza Airport is managed by Frankfurt Airport Service Worldwide, Fraport. This one of a partner of a ProQR to make the pilot plant possible. The project goals in Fortaleza Airport are development of decentralized production model for sustainable aviation fuels based on renewable energy and direct air capturing of CO2, construction of a pilot plant with a production of capacity over 1,000 liters per day of renewable aviation fuels at airport over Fortaleza. And of course, we are looking for partnerships If you have interest in know more about this, we are open to talk about.
Isn't it fascinating?
If you want to know more about the project or discuss about.
Isn't it fascinating that the future of aviation maybe won't have its takeoff at major hubs like Frankfurt or Bangkok, but in remote airports in the Brazilian jungle? If you have questions towards Marcos, please ask them in the chat. Our last input for today comes from Dominica. Michael Savarin is working as National Program Coordinator for Dominica's Green Climate Fund activities. Let's hear from him how hydrogen and Power-to-X can contribute to transform Dominica's transport sector.
My name is Michael Savarin. I am the National Program Coordinator for Green Climate Fund activities and programs in the Commonwealth of Dominica. Dominica is a small island located in the Eastern Caribbean. Like many other island nations, we are in the front line in receipt of negative impacts of climate change. In 2015, we experienced an extreme weather event which destroyed 90% of our GDP. In 2017, the devastating impact of Hurricane Maria eliminated the equivalent of 223% of our GDP. However, these unfortunate events have served to heighten our commitment to attaining climate resilience against extreme weather events. We have set ourselves the huge task of becoming the world's first climate resilient country. Further to this pursuit, all sectors have to obtain resilience. We are set to transform our transportation sector. With the support of the Green Climate Fund, we are deploying a national low-carbon transport feasibility project, which will, among other transport modalities, examine options for hydrogen vehicles, hydrogen vessels, including assessment of the entire hydrogen value chain, hydrogen production based on electrolysis using renewable energy, hydrogen logistics, hydrogen filling station, hydrogen vehicles with a special focus on hydrogen vessels. In addition, we are also implementing a feasibility study funded by the Green Climate Fund for the establishment of a green industrial eco-park powered by geothermal energy. Key considerations will be the establishment of logistics to facilitate hydrogen supply, ship refueling, and green port operations. We welcome partners with interest in executing investments in transportation logistics related to these activities. Dominica has 6 geothermal reservoirs. The potential availability of dedicated reservoirs to consortium of investors for cost-efficient green hydrogen production, green industrial and related transport logistic activities to facilitate our investment partners. We are developing a climate finance ecosystems to meet their financial needs. We are developing a national financing vehicle with the support of the Global Green Growth Institute. The National Financing Vehicle will provide a range of financing instruments, including grants for feasibility analysis and pilot project activities. We are also partnering with Jamaica Stock Exchange to allow for the issuing of green bonds for logistics and other low-carbon projects. And imminently, we anticipate entering a bilateral agreement with Switzerland for internationally transferred mitigation offsets, which will make grant financing available to transport logistics and other low-carbon investment projects. Dominica enjoys duty-free access to the United States for thousands of manufactured products via CBERA, duty-free access for manufactured goods to the European Union via the EPA, and positive asymmetrical access to most of countries of Central America and Central and Latin America. We eagerly await your request and inquiries and look forward to collaborative partnership in our journey to low carbon and climate resilience.
Thank you very much, Michael, Marcus, and Nadine, and welcome live to the question and answer part of the Hydrogen Hour. I have 1,000 questions myself, however, now we'll focus on the question from the audience. However, maybe a first question to all the 3 of you. All of you have to deal with decision makers and have to convince people that Power-to-X and hydrogen will be the future. What are you saying to decision makers? How do you convince them? What is your striking argument? Okay, it looks like that our experts still need some time, given that's a long way from the Philippines and Brazil. This is no problem. While we have the time, I would suggest that you have a look on our website of the Transport Week and have a look at our amazing agenda. There is much more to find than only hydrogen. Also, if you're interested in sustainable aviation fuel, you should stay with us for the upcoming session directly after this one. The next session will be about sustainability aviation fuel organized together with the World Economic Forum. But now I see all my 3 panelists. So, welcome to Berlin, welcome to the studio. Great to have you here. And let's start with the first question. What is your striking argument? How do you convince decision makers? I would say, ladies first, Nadine, you have the floor or the screen.
Thank you very much, Alexander. I'm very happy to be here. My motivation to incorporate Power-to-X into projects is quite high, actually. Power-to-X is seen as a very promising option because it can be made using clean electricity and such as solar or wind power. And if we have enough players and enough companies who are committed to use it, and if you have the right place where to put the Power-to-X place, actually I think we can convince countries to use Power-to-X. Thank you.
Then over to you, Marcus. Do you want to answer the same question? What is the striking argument for decision makers?
So, first of all, thank you for inviting me, and it's a pleasure to be here. Now, my motivation in working with PtX technologies is the certainty of bringing a contribution for climate protection. And as I showed you, Brazil is a country of continental dimensions, which has a great potential for renewable energy and sustainable fuel production. And these characteristics can turn Brazil into a world player in SAF production. And these characteristics, for me, seem the key point to sensibilize the decision makers.
Thank you very much. Michael, you are working for a government in Dominica, so you are directly in touch with decision makers. How do you convince them?
Yeah, it's a difficult task. I think the thing is, government has to balance both economic development and look at the various other areas of government that need support. And therefore, the identifying, getting support for this particular measure requires convincing and to, not to, where you have limited resources to disperse, it takes special appeal. But in this case here, we look at, given that we had the hurricane disasters in 2015 and 2017, what we have done is to put it in the frame of the overall resilience which is required. So in the context of resilience, this is what we have said. How can we look at a transformation of the transport sector as a component to giving us the kind of resilience that is required from the extreme events that we have suffered and we have felt so impactfully. That is at the local level. At the regional and international level, what we have to do is to convince potential partners of the absolute investment value which exists here in Dominica, given our superabundance of geothermal resources, a number of reservoirs which we contain, our ideal location within the Caribbean, close to the Panama Canal, close to North America, close to Europe, and to convince investors that there is a market, a value proposition here, given our cost-efficient production of energy that can be used to be part of the hydrogen supply chain, particularly in the context of these vehicles, of their vessels, and the maritime, the future transportation of transformation of maritime operations. So for us, it is a different argument given the national government, a different argument for international government.
Thank you very much. The next question goes in the direction of Nadine. You talked about different fuels options. At the moment, we're hearing a lot of ammonia do you think that ammonia will ultimately dominate the industry? Or where do you see the niches for methanol and hydrogen, or maybe also battery electric vessels?
Okay, good question. Actually, I think we should be prepared for a kind of multi-fuel society. I think there will be not one option at the moment because we don't have the fuel that can replace the current fuel, the current marine fuel. So actually, there will be different developments at the moment. So some companies will use ammonia, some methanol, some try the batteries for short-term shipping activities. And so I think we need to be prepared because right now we don't know which one is the best. So maybe we will have several solutions and several fuel solutions. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Markus, we have a question from the audience, and they ask, how long will it take for Power-to-X and transport to become profitable? So how much are the additional costs we are having at the moment, and do you have an expectation how they will evolve in the next years?
So thank you for this question. We don't have one specific price to sustainable aviation fuels, but we have it now in about the price like 1.5 times until 3 times the price, and we hope in the next years it's changed because in 2027 will be we will begin the third phase of a COSIA program, and in this moment we will be clear one new market for sustainable aviation fuels, and we hope at this moment the new ideas, new investments are in working, and after that we hope in some years this become competitive. Of course, new technologies and different roads in the first moments don't have the competitiveness regarding the fossil fuels, but we hope in some years it's become interesting for investors.
Thank you very much. The next question is about money too. Yesterday in the Showtime, we asked our participants where they personally would put their money, on e-mobility or on Power-to-X technologies. Michael, you are working in both fields. You're working in e-mobility as well as in hydrogen and Power-to-X. Do you have an investment tip for our audience, where to invest and why?
Well, certainly, what I can say is that we are at the process of developing particular business models to guide investors, and we hope to present those business models once the analysis is complete. And we hope this will, in fact, serve to guide investors. The IDB, the Inter-American Development Bank, is looking regionally at hydrogen production and how that fits into Power-to-X opportunities, and to develop business models for those. And locally, we are, in fact, looking at low carbon transport options with specific financing options out of those exercises. So therefore, we will lean on these business models from these studies to provide guidance to potential investors. But what we are looking at is a number of things. One, making sure that we provide a very, very low production cost for renewables. And that is a big factor in making it affordable. So in Dominica, what we will provide you with is very cheap renewable energy, because we have a super abundance of geothermal power, and we can provide that at very, 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 very concessionable terms to any consortium of investors. So that's one consideration. The second consideration is financing. Where there's a financing gap, So what we've started to do is to have, and which we're doing, is to have partnerships with other financing entities. So we mentioned before the Jamaica Stock Exchange. We can provide the green bond option for potential investors if they do require it. We're doing a national financing vehicle with the Global Green Institute. So if there's concessionary loans, perhaps guarantees, we will provide that. So whereas we will lean on our business models to provide more specific details for potential investors, what we know, things that will add to a cost reduction, we have them in place right here, particularly in terms of the low production cost of renewables in Dominica, and as well as a financial ecosystem that will meet the investors, provide the right mix of financing instrument to make the investment profitable. And that is very key. And of course, our proximity to markets, our ability to have a free access, duty-free access to those markets. Those are key considerations for investors. And I think that something that we provide, we have here, and I think it's an opportunity that investors should take a look at. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Now, we talked about the production side, but to raise the amount of future fuels, it's also important to look at the demand side. There are different instruments currently in the debate, like quotas for different fuels. For example, I know that Brazil is thinking about a quota for synthetic aviation fuels. Marcus, what do you expect from such instruments like quotas? And are they worth being discussed?
So I'd like to mention that at this moment in Brazil, we have a special moment where both electromobility and PtX technologies will be considered. Recently, the Brazilian government launched the Fuel of the Future program, and in this program, synthetic fuels will be considered. And it's important to mention that they are discussing, and they have a big work group and coordinating by Ministry of Mines and Energy, and they will produce rules and preconditions to improve electromobility and sustainable aviation fuels, synthetic fuels, technologies for CCS, CCU, and we are seeing a good discussion at this moment, and of course we hope in the end of this discussion we hope to have rules and laws, etc., to improve the clean technologies for our country.
Thank you very much. Quotas in aviation are also discussed in Germany and in Europe. However, it's still a long way to get international binding standards from ICAO. What is your experience, Michael and Marcus, with international bodies like ICAO, for example? And afterwards, Nadine, be prepared, we'll ask you about IMO. Marcus, do you want to start about international policy frameworks? Marcus, do you want to take over and talk about what to expect from ICAO?
So, as I said, the Brazilian is member of ICAO, and this discussion about the third phase of CORSIA is being discussed into the government group, and the new demand from 2027 are considering, and we hope before this that the production of sustainable aviation fuel start in Brazil. We don't have production at this moment, but we're seeing the actions and work of ICAO very important for decarbonizing the aviation sector.
Thank you very much. Nadine, we heard about ICAO. What do you think about IMO's ambitions on fostering and promoting future fuels?
Yes, of course, IMO is doing a great job. I'm working with that team since 2 years now, and the targets are set. What do you do? Ships are really big investments and long-term investments. So actually it needs to be realistic to set targets in greenhouse gas emission with ships. And IMO has a lot of ongoing activities to reach the targets, greenhouse gas emission targets. And one of the projects that will start now next week is with us together with PEMSEA. And we will work on demonstration pilots. So what is reducing greenhouse gas emissions? And they also have GLOMI project and Green Voyage project. So actually, I think IMO is on a very good way with the countries. The countries are also very engaged and doing a great job. So actually, I'm pretty optimistic that we will reach our goal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This was the last question of today. However, all of you have now the possibility to say one wish to our audience. Remember, in our audience, there are a lot of decision makers. What do you want to tell them by only one sentence? Marcus, do you want to start?
Could you repeat, please?
If you had one sentence to say to decision makers, what should they do to support future fuels in transport?
So after the COVID-19 after the beginning of COVID-19, and a lot of colleagues, a lot of peoples were thinking that was the worst situation for new technologies, for climate protection measures, etc. And for my surprise, today we have a good discussion around PtX technologies.
One sentence.
Sorry.
One sentence for decision makers.
I'm believing that PtX technologies are the future.
Thank you. Michael, what sentence would you add to Marco's first sentence?
We have a clear national commitment to low carbon transportation transformation, and we have a value proposition that investors should really participate with us in executing.
Thank you very much. This was right on the point. Nadine, your sentence.
If I could wish for something personally, as someone who has to handle state project funds carefully, then I would like to have an atmosphere in which I can develop solutions with companies without running the risk of violating compliance. I think we need a platform for that immediately.
Okay, one sentence, a long sentence. And thank all of you for joining us today. And if you, the audience, have additional questions, I'm sure our experts are happy if you contact them. Thank you very much from my side. It was a pleasure to host this Hydrogen Hour. Thank you. One thing that was mentioned quite often during the last hour was the question about policies and frameworks. And these are also topics of our upcoming session of sustainable aviation fuels for clean skies. Now with me in the studio is my colleague Thorsten. Thorsten Schwab is head of the International PtX Hub, and he will be the moderator of the upcoming panel discussion. Thorsten, great to have you here.
Thank you, Alexander. Yes, indeed. We'll have a session coming up with points of view from providers, off-takers, NGOs, development cooperation, and the world economy. So stay tuned.
Great. I'm going over to join you on the screen and have fun.
Thank you.